I'm Jason Stone, and I'm going to sit down with my friend Eric today. First off, I'm going to talk about my channel just a bit because I don't know, I've just been interviewing I've been interviewing Logos users on my YouTube channel, and it's been a lot of fun. I said before that every time I sit down with someone, I learn something new about the platform, and I've been using it for like over a decade now. So this is a lot of fun. Um, I'm going to introduce, or Eric's going to introduce himself in a moment. And speaking of learning something new, all he did is kind of like opened up his screen and shared it for a moment, and I was like blown away. So I'm really looking forward to sharing Eric's use case with you. So we're going to get into that in a moment. But before we do, I always like my guests to just give some context because it kind of like positions the application a bit, like who are we sitting down with, how are they using it, what's their history, and like specific application for the application, their use case for the application. And so I'm going to let Eric say hello, and then we're just going to get into it. Eric, thanks for being here with me on this channel with this interview. And if you don't mind, first off, just to say a little bit about who you are, what you're up to in New Hampshire, and how you use Logos in general. And then we'll share our screen and get into it.
Sure thing. So I'm a deacon at my church and I teach the adult Sunday school class currently. Currently, we're going through how we received our Bibles. So it's a long, in-depth study on how we received our Bibles. We're on week 43 on the subject. And
Okay.
we're in the Reformation era right now. We just got to the Geneva Bible and the Bishop's Bible. And at times also, my pastor asks me to fill the pulpit. And so I also use Logos, not just to help me prep for my Sunday school, but also to prepare for sermons.
Awesome. And I know we're going to focus on sermon prep on that side of things, but if we dabble in the Sunday school or the weekly teaching that you do.
I can talk about the Sunday school stuff pretty briefly up
Yeah.
front, because that's what I use the Boox application for.
Awesome. Which is like a golden nugget. I'm excited. I feel like in our Facebook group, which I think is how we're connected, is the Facebook group.
Yes.
There's like so many different ways. I kind of talk to a lot of Logos users. But anyways, the Facebook group, if you're not in it, if you're watching the YouTube channel and you're not in it, then I'll drop a link in the description that you can go and join our Facebook group. Like, I think we're just about to reach 17,000 members in the Logos Tips and Tricks group. We also have a free Books group that's, I think, 15 or 14,000 members in it. And so there's a lot of folks there who are talking about Logos. Anyways, we came across one another in that group, and then I was going to say that we have someone ask probably once a month about e-ink and Logos use. So there are these tablets out there that are like, you'll explain it in a second, much more than I can do. But there are tablets out there that are e-ink, and you can actually install Logos on them, and we'll get into that in a second. But before we do, I like to set the stage and talk about the mile markers that we're going to cover. And so we have Boox, or this e-ink tablet.
Yep.
Which we're going to kick off with first. And then there's sermon prep. So we're going to lean into the sermon prep side of things, but we'll focus on CSB, moving from CSB into the sermon prep side of things. We'll definitely cover your layout, and then the information tool just a bit, and then how you review, I'll say, the Apocrypha, or how that adds a bit of context to your studies as well. So did I miss anything that we talked about beforehand?
I don't think so. I have an outline too, so we'll try to stay on
Okay,
track.
it's fine. And I got as much time as you got, so we'll just
Okay.
go for it.
Well, that's dangerous. Everyone who knows me knows that's dangerous.
If you want, we'll share your screen. And as you do, go ahead, Eric. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, to show the books, I'm not going to share my screen. I could kind
Oh,
of
okay.
flip through it.
Okay,
Yeah.
as you do, I'll throw a disclaimer out, but let's talk about Boox first.
Okay. So when I am working on my Sunday school material, usually it's very topical. Like I said, we're doing how we received our Bibles. And so I'm looking for materials, books that I'm going to read. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a layperson. So I read a lot of scholars' books before I start teaching. And so I'll actually I use Facebook, I use people I trust, but I also use the AI function on Logos to ask it to recommend books on particular topics. And I'll use the AI function for that. And then once I have a library of books that I want to read on the topic, then I will download them onto my e-ink e-reader. And so currently, like what I have on here, I have Simply Trinity by Matthew Barrett up there because the next topic I want to get into for our Sunday school class will be on the Trinity. And so what I use the e-reader for is what I do not use my computer for. I don't use the application on my computer for reading. I use it primarily for sermon prep and research, reference guides. But when I want to read a book cover to cover or chapters or things of that nature, I will use my e-reader. I can sit down on the couch and read it, and it's not straining my eyes, and I don't have to buy the print book. But now I have the book in my Logos library, and I'm able to read it comfortably. And so as I need stuff and highlight and take
That's what I was
notes,
just
it's
gonna
all
ask.
there.
Are you highlighting and taking notes? Like, are you engaging with the text, or are you just kind of like scrolling through it and reading like high level? Which I know there's different ways to read, and people read in different ways. Like, if I'm just having conversation with the book and flying through it, that's one thing. But if I'm like researching or sermon prep or like highlighting different parts or like marking up the margins or taking notes as I'm digging through, those are two different, multiple different ways of reading. So, what does that look like on books?
So on Boox, it's the exact same functionality as you have on your mobile phone. So everything you can do on your mobile phone, you can do on Boox.
Mm-hmm.
My disclaimer on that, though, is that Boox is not a powerhouse. It's not going to do
Yeah.
all the things your phone can do well. Having me, I call my study prep FOMO. I'm afraid of missing out. So when I use my Boox e-reader, I use it pretty much just for reading, and I will occasionally highlight in it. I'm more apt to copy a text and paste it into a different notepad that I'll go retrieve information from later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm primarily just reading the text, maybe giving some highlights and copying some information out of it.
As you share your screen, maybe, would you recommend, like, people are asking all the time, is it worth it? Because I know that there's like a lag or there's like a second as the page turns, and there's an adjustment. Like, if you go from smartphones, essentially, like these iPhones or powerhouse devices, and then you jump to a Boox tablet, like the e-ink background or the backlit e-ink is like wonderful for the eyes, but I don't know, would you recommend it to people?
It's actually the whole reason I got the Boox the Boox e-reader.
Exactly.
I like e-readers. I use Kindle for books I can't get on Logos, but you can't on Kindle e-readers like the whatever they call the Paperwhites. You can't download Logos on it, and I don't like tablets. They end up just being too bulky for me, so I use my cell phone for everything a tablet can do, but I don't like reading on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I use the e-reader really like 90% of the time is for Logos books that I want to read through cover to cover and have in my library for reference material.
Like monographs, and that you're just walking through that way.
Yeah.
Cool. You ready to get into it? I know that, I said as you share your screen, I was going to say a disclaimer to basically anybody who's watching the replay, because what you're going to see in a moment is going to feel like a lot at first. But these interviews and the time I get to sit down with users, I say this a lot also, it's to remove that shell shock, that like intimidation factor. And as Eric was talking through his layout here that he's going to walk through a bit, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Like the way that it is compartmentalized and he's using it for specific purposes and linking it together, it makes sense. It just takes a moment. And so if this is brand new, if you're brand new to Logos, or if you're a few months into subscription and trying things out or whatever, wherever you're at with things, as you check out Eric's screen here in a second for the first time, don't get scared. We're going to walk through it together.
We will. And like I said, my study prep is like FOMO. I'm afraid of missing out. So I definitely put a lot up on the screen. There was one thing we didn't talk about that I thought I'd mention too, is importing a book as a personal book. I do that too, if we want to cover that real quick.
Yeah. Or if you at the close, we'll talk about adding a personal book or how you use personal books. That would be great, because then you could do a quick close all and you could demonstrate one of your personal resources or something like that. Yeah,
I had one queued up just in case.
Well, then perfect. Let's start with your monster layout. Okay. And again, something else I was going to say was, I feel like a handful of people in the comments may say, can you zoom in a little bit? We did zoom in.
We can zoom in more if we want to.
We can zoom in just a hair more.
A hair
But
more?
I would also encourage everybody to be thinking high level. Like, you don't have to read every letter and footnote that's on this. We're going to talk about big picture here, what Eric is doing. And so if you're ready, I'm ready. We can get into sermon prep. That looks good.
Sure. Okay. So I don't have a particular sermon I'm working on currently, so this is just kind of off the cuff. But normally what I would do is I pick whatever passage I'm going to preach out of, and I read that thoroughly, and I read it in multiple translations, and I do all of that. And then when I'm ready to like bear down and look at the individual word level or the sentence level, then I start really using this information panel over here that highlights with us. So if I was curious about maybe this word, encouragement, over here on the information panel, it's going to give me an English. Where are we? The
And you
English
have that set
definition.
to hover, correct? Not
I have
click.
it set to hover because if I click, it opens my fact book, which I keep open. So I keep it on hover, and then if you just click with your mouse, it won't change. So if like you move slowly across the screen, it's not gonna work. So I hover over it and then I just move right over there. And so I'll get an English definition for the word encouragement, then I'll get in this case, the Greek definition from BDAG. And so I get a lot of information at the word level right here on my information panel. And then I can also see how other translations real quickly translate that same word. Okay, so it's exhorted in Young's literal translation or something of that nature, exhorted in the MEV, strengthened in the NCV. I don't even know what that is. But I can see that there are how different translations handle it right here at the word level before I start doing a more text comparison for the whole verse level. So this is really helpful for me to see if maybe there's like a translation difficulty or something where I'm seeing a wide variety of different words being used. This case, pretty much everyone's saying the same thing: encouragement, strengthen, or exhort. And I already know the linguistic overlap there, so no issue there. I can move on. That's quick. But if I did need,
let me just add, it's
yeah,
nice because if you were to pull up text comparison, for example, not that you would need to, if you were to pull that up, it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to go, well, how do I add a different translation? And should I? And like, maybe I jump to the next passage or something like that. And all of a sudden, text comparison is a new tool that's open and you're distracted from the Bible text or from the text that you're studying and reading. And so you can open it from right here.
right?
But
Yeah, I have the
you've
text
done
comparison.
a quick survey of how different translations, multiple translations, translate it. And so yeah, I was just going to say that's really nice. In different interviews, I think about how you can expose tools or review tools without getting lost in them, like different features within the platform. And so this is a nice way to do text comparison without getting lost in the text comparison tool.
Right, and I have my text comparison open in a separate monitor, but I'm not there in my sermon prep yet. I'm really at this point just looking for translation difficulty. If I saw a translation difficulty in this situation here, then I'd want to see context. And that's when I would open the text comparison on the various translations and see the full context as to maybe how they came to that conclusion. And I don't speak Greek and Hebrew. I know enough to be dangerous, not enough to be helpful. And so I really lean on multiple translations to give me insight as to what's going on in the Greek and Hebrew as well. And so if I do want to get into Greek and Hebrew word studies and open up how maybe the CSB, well, actually, I can get into that. So if I wanted to open up the word study on this, let's see, I'll just drop this in right here. And I can see how the CSB has translated this word multiple ways. But I also keep the Vulgate open as an ancient translation to see how it's handling it and what the Septuagint did with that. And so I spend a lot of time there. And you've done a lot already with the word study stuff, so I'm not going to spend much time here. There are a number of interviews here, but I do use the senses tab a lot. So these are different senses and so on.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
But you can get right to that right from this information tab, which I see a lot of people do is they'll right click on the word that they want to, but I'm already there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already working through the word already in multiple translations. I'm doing a lot of survey work.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, so there's no translation difficulty here. There's no textual variant that's showing up. So, but if there was, that's when I would open up my text comparison tool and look at my text variants.
Looks like you may have a floating tab that's not displaying. Is that what's happening there?
Okay. I just opened it up on the monitor. Let's
Yeah,
see.
I'm not seeing the text comparison. Maybe that's all.
You're not.
That was the issue there.
Let's see. Let's do this then. I don't know why you're not seeing this. All right. We will circle back to that. So that's what I'll do. I'll find the differences. I'll use the text compare all from here. And then maybe I want to get into cross references, right? And so there's a number of ways I go about finding cross references. I can use the word study to the senses. They will show me a bunch of different cross references. At that point, I'll go into what I call my New Testament tab. So
that would be good also to point out real quick, just a quick, because you have CSB open 3 times and someone may be wondering what's happening there.
So I have the CSB open and my top 5 translations are always open. And then whatever I'm working on, other translations might open up with it. But I have what I call my New Testament tab with my New Testament passage guide and exegetical guide linked together. And then I have my Old Testament tab. And so if I want to do cross references between the Old and New Testament, I keep my text that I'm working out of here open to that text. And then my first New Testament cross reference will be open here. My Old Testament cross reference will be open here. And my commentaries for each of those passages, because if you're going to switch to different texts, you should probably know what that text is talking about. Mm-hmm. And so I have my passage guide linked to whatever text I'm in so I can open up my commentaries. And this is huge, is to prioritize your commentaries. I prioritize pretty much everything so that everything I want goes down for quite a while. I know exactly what I'm looking for. When I scroll through this, a number of people will be like, that's a lot of commentaries. But I know what I'm looking for. Most of the time, I'm skipping commentaries because I'm looking for something particular.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because of what I've been working on in my Sunday school, the text of how we received our Bibles, you can't really talk about the subject without talking about the canon. And so at some point, you're going to deal with the canon. And as a good Protestant, I don't affirm the Apocrypha as canon. However, church history has used the Apocrypha throughout as something that is good and useful. And it provides context, a lot of historic context, things of that nature. And so because of that, I have used the Apocrypha as part of my cross-referencing. So right now I'm in the Geneva Bible in our Sunday school class, and here are the Geneva Bible notes. And occasionally, as I'm working through a particular issue in the Geneva Bible, right now we're talking about italics. So the first English Bible to show up with italics is the Geneva Bible. So, but other issues we might be dealing with will show up, and the Geneva Bible might give us a cross-reference to a book in the Apocrypha. Not just the Geneva Bible, the KJV does as well, and we're going to be talking about that soon. So I opened those cross references to see what the KJV translators and the Geneva Bible translators, they're all Protestants there, and they weren't afraid to use the Apocrypha. It's just, you treat it like you treat any other work of a human being, right? Like I do with these commentaries down here.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's not much unlike a commentary. How do
It's
you
not,
get the Geneva Bible notes open or closed? How do you find those again if you were to close those accidentally?
this is the, I think it's under view. Yeah, it's add parallel text. And so for a long time, I used parallel text to use two translations, one next to the other. Maybe I would use a functional translation next to a formal translation. And I did that for a while, but I dig into so many different translations that this became cumbersome. And what I realized was is nearly every publisher, or at least the major publishers, I should say, have a study Bible. And so even with like my CSB, Holman makes a study Bible. And so I can open parallel text and I keep it. Yeah, I keep it right here. I think this is it. Oh no, now I've messed it up. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. It's right here. So this is the CSB study Bible here.
Okay.
And I do that with like the NLT or LEB. Actually, I keep this one with the Greek and Hebrew. But the NLT, I have the NLT study Bible. The NET, here are the footnotes. Everybody loves the NET footnotes.
Right.
So I have the NET footnotes right here. If I'm in the study Bible frequently, I just keep it open. I recommend to my Sunday school class all the time to start with their study Bible when they get into the study before they open commentaries, because they get a good summary. It's cheap. They don't have to spend a ton of money on a commentary set. They have a whole Bible commentary set. So utilize multiple study Bibles. You can have 5 study Bibles for $120, or you can have 3 commentaries.
Yeah. And the
So
Faith Life Study Bible, I'm just going to say, is a
yep.
treasure.
Yep. I have the Faith Life Study Bible right here. I do sometimes open it with the Lexham English Bible since they're related, but generally I keep that one in its own separate tab if I open it. It's one of my top resources. So the Geneva Bible is no different. I do the Geneva Bible the exact same way. I grab the Geneva Bible notes. When I purchased the Geneva Bible, I purchased the one that came with the notes. And then I keep that in a separate text. And the Geneva Bible really is like one of the first English study Bibles. And so when I want Reformation era study notes, the Geneva Bible's my go-to. Well, I want to see what they have to say, and it's right here. So my Geneva Bible and my KJV Bible are my links to the Apocrypha. I haven't done too much work on the Apocrypha by itself, other than the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees for apologetics work. But outside of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, most of my engagement with the Apocrypha is generally through the cross references found in the Geneva Bible and the KJV.
Right. Does the NAT reference it at all, or not really?
The NET does not reference it. However, I have Catholic Bibles as well, and they'll reference it as well. So occasionally with a Catholic Bible, I'll get a cross-reference as well. I don't generally open those quite as frequently unless I'm looking for how a Roman Catholic might interpret a text, or if there is I'm about to get into the Douay-Rheims Bible, which is a English translation of the Latin Vulgate during the Reformation. And so I have that ready to go as we talk about that in our class. And so that also references apocryphal notes as well.
Love it. Can you say something to your link sets? Not just ABC in your target link set, but I think you also want to possibly mention what's happening with Factbook in your dictionaries.
Yeah. So when I have like a word, maybe Macedonia or something, and I see, okay, Macedonia is a country, I can click this link here and it will open down here, which is where I keep my English dictionary. So click it, I'll open Macedonia. And if this worked, it will also open my fact book. It didn't. Sometimes my fact book will open with it. The problem with what I think I just did is because Macedonia might have more than one thing it can open.
Sure. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I can open all of my English resources that are based on the word and anything that comes up. So here, my Baker Illustrated Bible Dictionary now is open to Macedonia. My Lexham Bible Dictionary is open to Macedonia. And so if I was looking up the word divorce, that would open up my English. These are like my English resources.
Yeah.
And I also use things like the counseling guide and things of that nature. I don't use it very much. I'm not much of a counselor, but sometimes I'll use it as part of my application when I'm working through the application of a passage.
Yeah.
And
I have a
stuff.
question on link sets is how do you, and you probably did this and I didn't even realize it until I'm thinking about it right now. If you have your New Testament space and your Old Testament space, how do you send a link to one of those link sets? Or do you not, or do you just type it in once you?
Like if I want to,
Yeah,
if I see a cross-reference and I want to open it,
exactly.
everything opens in my CSB over here. So if I want to utilize these, I type them in.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how but then everything's still linked together. I just type them in that way.
I was just wondering if there was a way that I didn't know to pop into one of your New Testament or Old Testament spaces.
No, but what is nice, it's not perfect, but if I am in my text comparison and I do want to open, so one of the things I do frequently, let's see here.
That's looking like good. And then
there we go. Perfect. We figured it out. All right, so if I move this over here, and one of the things, okay, so I told you guys I was dealing with italics right now. And italics do not show up well on
text comparison.
Right. So if I want to see italics, I have to open it up. Mm-hmm. And so my text comparison is also A, B, and C. So this is Apocrypha, Old Testament, and New Testament. So I keep these linked together as well.
Yeah.
And then my Lexham notes, I actually just flip my link set as I need to in between whichever one I want to see. And I keep a text comparison also of, well, I'm in the Old Testament, but of my Greek text.
Yes.
So that's just New Testament, so I keep it on the A.
I see.
So, yeah, okay, I actually have it open. So anyway, if I want to see, one of the things that I think is heavily underutilized in comparing Bible translations, as you can see, I compare a lot of Bible translations, but are the footnotes in Bible translations. And so if I want to know about a particular footnote, I'll open those up and they'll open me to where, so this footnote here, or he has taught you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let's do, but if I want to open like the NLT, it figured out that this is the one I wanted to open, which is great. But sometimes it will drop me into my NLT that's over here. And so it's not perfect. So I can flip to it, but generally I'll come to this and all I have to do is, if I want the footnote of a particular translation, so here we have 3 footnotes, I would read those. That would be part of my study. I would type these in. And my whole row up here will follow me. And then I can just click through the footnotes of each translation.
Yeah.
Do
you ever use
through that.
Power Lookup?
I had it open for a while and I was not figuring out how I would use it, so I ended up closing it.
Mm-hmm. I
And
think it's primarily used for footnotes. That's why it came to mind while you were running through footnotes there.
so, all right, power
Right there.
lookup.
But
And
you'd have to likely link it.
I'll link it to A,
Wonder what
and
that
we'll
would do.
just go to 223. Yeah.
Nothing.
So yeah, this is I was running into it where I was like 50% of the time it was doing something I
Is it
wanted
on
it to do.
hover? Could you check that?
It
I
is.
wonder if it was something like that. But no.
I don't see that.
Someone will let us know. Someone will let us know in the comments how to get that working
Yeah.
appropriately. But that's what comes to mind.
If footnotes showed up here, that would be super helpful because then I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to open all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The
Exactly.
footnotes tab in the
In the info.
info does sometimes give me what I'm looking for,
Okay.
but I don't always know where the footnote is coming from. So it's not as
That's
helpful to
awesome.
me,
Yeah.
but I have used it as well.
Okay. So Apocrypha, I didn't know if you wanted to share any more about that, but I would love to also do like a bonus on personal books if you have
Yeah.
anything on personal
So
books to add, because I don't get I don't do much with personal books, and I know that there's a whole formatting world to personal books and Word doc and everything, and so
yeah,
I
it can
haven't
be
dug into it.
challenging. So I came from, I'll just open my personal books tab. And I came from a KJV only world
Okay.
in my history. And so a lot of guys who write commentaries on that do not have their commentaries on Logos because they self publish. And so the way I was getting their books, they would send me PDFs and I would convert them into Word docs and then I would upload them. And so I learned a lot about what works and what doesn't through that process. For example, I was doing apologetics. This is a good one. I was doing apologetics on the Book of Mormon. Arguments against it, not for it. But Logos doesn't have a Book of Mormon that you can buy and put in the software. And I think people would flip out if they did. But I would use it. Not for the reasons that Mormons would like me to use it for, but I would still use it.
I
But so
understand.
that I could engage with the Book of Mormon in a digital way on my Logos in comparing with my other translations. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
opening a different resource again. I just asked them for a digital copy and they gave it to me. And so I uploaded it in here so
Yeah.
that I could engage with it. So, but recently I told you I've also added other books since then, but working on italics, and one of my pastor friends wrote an article on italics, and I was like, that's so helpful, particularly the italics in the KJV. And so I'm like, I want that resource searchable for the future. And Logos will search your personal books when you ask it for things. So I already prepped it. Logos will not download a PDF. It has to be in a Word doc unless something has changed recently. Thankfully,
That's correct.
he gave it to me in an email, the article that he wrote. So I just copied and pasted it into a Word doc. And so I just go up here. The first thing I do is I give it a picture, and I've already kind of worked through this here. Let's see, Books for Logos. And so that was the picture I wanted to use for this. So here we go, picture on italics. I'd fill in his name, John Uett, the Flesh, as his name. And, that was the author. So here we go, put that in the author, and I would write John Uett, the Flesh, on the use of italics in the KJV. Okay, that's the title. That's how it's going to show up in your library. So he didn't actually have a title. I'm just giving it one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to add the file, which I already did in a Word doc.
Mm-hmm.
So then you just open it, and then you build book, and then it's going to tell you how many errors are in it And the errors aren't going to be like that he made an error. It's the errors that it did in converting it to a Logos
formatting.
book. Yeah, formatting. And almost always when I do this, it has to do with Greek and Hebrew font. So if someone actually writes Greek words and Hebrew words and Logos doesn't have the font, I noticed this for people who use BibleWorks. So if my previous mentor used BibleWorks a lot, and so he would use a BibleWorks font that Logos doesn't recognize. So when I would import it, it would be gobbledygook. It wouldn't mean anything, but it would just be the Greek and Hebrew, and I would end up writing actual notes to fix it. But anyway, so you do build book, and look at that, 0 errors, probably because he didn't write anything in Greek. So then you can open the book. And let's see here it is. Let's see. Can you guys see it?
There it is.
Boom.
Yeah.
And so now I can.
It even did abbreviated or acronyms or whatever the correct word is for there. It at the very top, JUD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Based on your title.
Look at that.
So when you write your title, it goes in, and now I have hyperlinks. When he uses a verse, I get to use that verse. He has links to go outside of Logos. I have that access. Now I have this in my search results.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to, I don't know if it will pop up right away, but we can try. Let's see. How does the KJV use italic?
Ooh, I wonder if Smart Search uses your personal books.
That's a good question. Doesn't.
Can you select all books if you select personal instead? No, go back to books there and then select personal. I wonder if that'll help.
There it is.
There it is.
It's the first one. Then this will be very helpful for me now.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I can search my personal books on how.
If I'm going back to what we started with books, your tablet, the personal books won't transfer, correct? Is that right?
I do not. I've never tried because generally I'm not using my personal books to read through on Logos. I usually have a physical copy or a PDF version, and I would just read that on my books directly instead of through Logos. So if I have the physical book, I'll read it directly. But if they send me a PDF, I'll just put that right on my Boox tablet.
That's true. Yeah.
And I'll just read it that way.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Anything else that you wanted to add? I'm looking at my notes. And you cleaned house. You covered it all.
Let's see. Let's see. Prioritize books, beginning text, dictionaries, fact book. We covered all of that. Footnotes, text variants. Oh, okay, yeah. Translation difficulties. UBS handbook. These guys, the UBS handbook I really liked because it covers my New Testament, my Old Testament, and the Apocrypha for translation issue.
The UBS handbook does. Okay.
Yeah. So
I remember that. Yeah.
Yep. So I use that. It's my top resource for translation difficulties and textual variants, because I can get it across all 3 link sets.
Is there a study Bible that you use? It looks like Orthodox Study Bible.
I use so many study Bibles.
On the Apocrypha side of things, I was thinking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I start primarily with the Septuagint, the NETS.
Okay.
I really like the NETS. And what I have going on here in my view, people, if they're not engaging with the Septuagint much, they may not know this, but sometimes there's alternative texts is what they're called. And so I will open the alternative text with the primary text. So not every passage does. Like if I go to Psalm 1 in the Septuagint, it's just one text. There's not an alternative text. But in Tobit 1, which is where we just were, there is an alternative text. And this just has to do with other manuscripts that they found. And so I'll compare maybe what happened, what's going on with those manuscripts. I also have the Lexham English Septuagint, 2nd edition. that I use, and I do the same thing with that because they also have the alternative text. The Brenton Septuagint. I'm always using multiple translations, even of apocryphal works. Dead Sea Scrolls, what it has to say. This is a great resource. The REB, the King James Apocrypha, the Geneva Apocrypha. So I get footnotes in the Apocrypha. One of the things that's slightly different between the Geneva and the King James is there's very minimal footnotes at all in the King James when it comes to the inside the Apocrypha, although they reference it outside. But the Geneva actually does have quite a few footnotes inside the Apocrypha, which are helpful. Then the NRSV UE has the apocryphal books. The English Standard Version, Catholic Edition, has apocryphal books. UEB, Ecumenical Edition. CEB, I have the AV open again. Then New Cambridge Paragraph, David Norton's KJV, Dewey Rames, NJB, and Wycliffe, Coverdale.
Yeah.
So, I do use this is what you were looking at. So I went off.
Well, it's okay. It's an area. I mean, I don't dig into Septuagint all that often, so it was nice, it was a nice refresher too.
Well, the Septuagint can be super helpful, not just in translation work, but also in apocryphal work, if you're going to look at it. And so all of these commentaries, especially these top 4 right here, I do use pretty frequently. The Orthodox Study Bible, because one of the things I like about the Orthodox Study Bible, I'm not Greek Orthodox, I don't subscribe to them, but they do have a lot of church father quotes in it, like the Ancient Faith Study Bible or the ESV Church History Study Bible. But I also like the Ancient Christian Church Commentary.
Oh my gosh, what is it? HCCS?
Yeah, ACCS, Ancient Christian Commentary. Pretty sure it's Ancient Christian Commentary, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So this one will also have quotes in the Apocrypha. So this is largely how I engage with the Apocrypha in a study Bible. Are these 4? I do have some
Ancient Christian Commentary on Scripture. That's what
there it is.
I was like, what is the S? I couldn't move on from it.
Yeah.
So awesome. I feel like we've covered a lot.
Yeah. It feels overwhelming.
Personal books. We looked at text comparison, translation notes, footnotes, link sets, books, e-reader, sermon prep, all the above.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage people that it might, especially my screen might look overwhelming, but each window has just one job. And so
you're operating on what? I'm going to guess a 30-inch screen or something?
I think this is 42.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's good to know as well.
And I have 3 screens. So
Eric.
I didn't even show you the other screens.
Okay.
There's one last thing I do want to mention.
Yeah.
You've talked about this a lot, is the workspaces, or the layouts, I should say. But one of the things that I do also is the preaching layout. So this is, I call it the preaching layout. Give me a second. There we go.
Okay.
I do not like Logos's preach
mode. Sure.
It's too limiting. So what I end up doing is I actually use the edit window that I created my sermon in to preach out of.
Okay.
And I keep my Bible open on the right. And so if I do need to hyperlink over to a commentary or to a scripture verse, normally I just have them pasted right into my sermon. But I have my Bible open if I need to hop over there. So I use the preaching layout, the actual editor for preparing your sermon, to preach out of.
Good to know. Yeah.
And I find that
you enlarge the text, or is that because of program scaling? Okay.
It might be because of program scaling, but I do enlarge the text. So I bring my I've done it with my e-reader, but I generally will bring up my laptop when I'm preaching, and I'll have the text really big, so I don't have to squint at it or lean down, and I can just work through my text as I'm working through it. So I
That's
do
really good
use,
to know. I haven't heard anybody else do that.
yeah, I tried the preach window, and it is,
Yeah.
I don't like it. I can't see anything other than my message. And maybe for some people that's good. But for me, sometimes people ask me a question or something. And that's typically during Sunday school, not while I'm preaching.
Sure.
But if someone did, for whatever reason, I like to have my Bible open.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not limited to just the text of my other one. And then the other thing I use layouts for is people in my family. So my daughter was doing a Bible study with her friends. And I was like, I have a gazillion resources to help you work through this.
Yeah.
And so I set her up on her computer with my account. I asked Logos if that was okay. And they're like, yeah, you can use it within your household.
Okay.
And then she got on my account, and she has her own layout, because I said to her, don't mess with my layout.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do with your layout, you can make it however you like, but don't mess with mine. And my wife also, she was teaching a Sunday school class on Titus 2, and so I gave her her own layout. So you can do layouts for not just things that you do, like I have my default layout, my preaching layout, reading layout, but also for other people in my house, that they can access all these wonderful resources on their own.
On a click. Just have it ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they just come in and they pick up where they left off.
That's another use case I hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think I've covered everything.
I'm gonna encourage anybody who's watching the replay. A lot was covered, and so if you have any questions, I'll bug Eric. I'll make sure that Eric answers your questions, basically. But I'll try to answer any questions in the comments as well. We covered a lot. I thought this was like mind blowing, and I get to talk to a lot of different Logos users, and so this is a lot of fun. This was text comparison heavy, and I haven't got to sit down. I haven't had the chance to sit down with someone and like explore text comparison at this level. And we didn't even get into too much like Greek or Hebrew. You did a survey of Bible word study, which is cool, and that's a good thing. Is actually what I'm saying is you did survey and you did explore the original text, but there are a lot of people who've gone before us and done a lot of text comparison, a lot of translation work, and doing that text comparison at that level is giving you so much context. And when you see a word that's like, well, that's a weird translation, or that's peculiar, then you can go that direction and explore more. Yeah.
There was actually one that I thought was really interesting, and maybe this is too much of a rabbit trail. Let's see. I'm going to try to pull it up real quick. Let's see. Yeah. All right. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'll just show you just for fun.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Let's see. Entire screen. Share. All right. So I think it was this verse, Isaiah 13. Yeah, this word jackals here. Is it this one?
Isaiah 13.
Yeah, Isaiah 13:22. I don't know why I was in this the other day. Yeah, I think this is a interesting one.
Oh yeah.
I was jackals, and I was like, oh, look at all these translations translated jackals, but the KJV doesn't translate it. There's a variant reading in the Septuagint. The Young's literal translation says dragon. The Vulgate says sirens. I was like, wow, if I wanted to, I could spend quite a bit. Animals are really tough in translation, but this is like a good place where I'm like, all right, I see a variant reading in the Septuagint, but it doesn't tell me what it is, so I have to open it. So here it's verse 22. Where did it open? It didn't open where I wanted it. But I am in, let's just go to Isaiah 13:22. Donkey centaurs.
What?
Hedgehogs.
This is the
Anyway,
same, like same lemma, same word, like the same.
this is the Greek translation. This is the English translation of the Greek translation
Okay, yeah,
of Isaiah 13:22.
yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
donkey centaurs.
Yep.
There's a dissertation if anyone's looking for one.
Well, all I'm saying is this. I didn't get to show you guys something interesting. I showed you something boring where there was no textual, no translation difficulty. But
That is so
sometimes
strange.
you come across one like this that's super interesting and you want to dig into it. Uh, and even the NETS, they translate it the same way, donkey centaurs.
Yeah,
What does that mean? I don't know.
I'm making a note
Perhaps
of
a
this right
kind
now.
of tailless ape
I'm
is
making a
the.
note.
So anyway,
Donkey centaurs.
I ran into that the other day, and that's how I found it, though. I wouldn't have found it. I saw a translation variant or textual variant, and I needed to. I was like, what is the textual variant? Because it didn't tell me. And when I got into it, I was like, this is super interesting. I have no time to spend on this. I'm just going to tuck away and I'll touch it a different day. So
And now we have the name of our episode here, our interview. Oh, all right. Well, appreciate it, Eric. All of it. I feel like I don't know. There's like I said, there's so much to cover. Anybody watching the replay, any comments, any questions, clarifications, please don't be afraid to ask us. And Eric, I really appreciate your time and the ministry work that you're doing, your deacon role, and then just preaching regularly and the ministry work that you're doing with your family. So I'm just encouraged as I saw you just get pumped up to dig into the word and show off what you're doing with Logos. So please keep it up and blessing in all the different ways that you're serving the church. So thanks again for your time, man. I appreciate it. And we'll wrap it up until the next interview.
that sounds great. Thank you very much.